Hi, everyone. So today we will be presenting on the evolving landscape of the Nigerian music market. So Fela Kuti paved the way for Nigerian artists to be able to thrive beyond their borders more than 40 years ago. And so now, 20 years after his death, he's being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and new generations of Nigerian artists have developed and are thriving. So for this presentation, we'll be looking at two different generations of artists, internationally established artists like Wizkid, Burna Boy, and Davido, and then artists who are on the international come up like Omale, Thames, and Joe Boy. And so the methods that Nigerian artists have used to cross over has significantly shifted over time, especially over the past like 5 years or so. And so crossovers have the potential to occur far faster than ever before. And so the question that we're asking is, with such exciting perspectives, how can we spot the early signs of success for up-and-coming Nigerian artists? The first factor that we'll look at is radio. In Nigeria, radio is still one of the major ways that people listen to music and artists are able to gain traction. For Nigerian artists that are looking to cross over internationally, it is very important to have the support of the local music scene, local tastemakers, DJs, and a solid fan base at home. This data was collected from the Chartmetric API, and it displays 28 days of recent radio data, airplay data for the newer artists that I listed. And so this map shows that Thames, Joe Boy, and Omale have already developed significant presence on the Nigerian airwaves, as well as West Africa just generally. And the chart below also indicates that they're reaching to the UK and beyond. And so next we have a sound profile comparison. So for this graph, we collected data from Spotify to analyze how the audio features that artists use have developed over time. And so the first feature that we'll look at is acousticness. And so over time, acousticness has become more important for artists. The up and coming artists have higher levels. And as you can see for the older artists, going back to 2011 to 2017, it was really low. But as time went on, you can see they kind of reflect the developing sound of the newer artists and increase their acousticness. The next feature is danceability. Across the Afrobeats genre and within the subgenres within it, danceability has always been really important. So here you see that for both older and newer artists, danceability remains generally high. The next feature is liveness, being able to detect an audience in a track. And so it used to be more important, as you can see, for the older artists. But as time went on, you can see that the newer artists factored it less into their music, and that the older artists also reflected that trend and factored it less. The next feature is energy, which is a relatively high feature with all artists, but you can see that with newer artists as well as the older artists a little bit, as Afrobeats within Afrobeats, as Afro R&B becomes more popular and artists are slowing down their tracks, kind of appealing to just like more chill vibe music, you can see that the energy has decreased some to reflect that. And so the next and last feature is balance. So for the older artists, you can see that balance was a more important feature initially, but kind of similar to energy, it did begin to taper off a little bit as Afro R&B continued to pick up. So it kind of reflected that same trend. And so next we'll look at trigger cities with Michele.
Right. So in 2019, Chartmetric published a series of 3 articles on what they called trigger cities. These are big and small cities all around the world that are identified as the origin of hype around a song or an artist. So they're kind of the center of the ripple effect. And the 2 biggest trigger cities in Europe are London and Paris, which are incidentally also the 2 biggest markets for Nigerian artists outside of Nigeria. So the time series shows how the number of listeners in London and Paris has changed in the past year and a half for our 3 up-and-coming artists. We can see some fluctuation, mostly due to releases. However, the most crucial takeaway here is this peak. So on the 6th of November 2020, Omale released a remix of his song Damn, featuring Black. Following this feature alone, the number of his listeners in London rose by 73% in a month. So where do we go from here? There's still a lot that can be done. We'll keep analyzing the data further to gain more insights. Our next goals are to identify new markets and new trigger cities and assessing the impact of language, versatility, branding, and specific artist features on our Nigerian artists' international potential. So our hope is that this study will work as a blueprint for how artists from smaller markets can reach international audiences. Thank you very much.
Perfect timing. All right, judges, do you have any questions? Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so another great presentation. So to the team, what would you do with this data? Because a lot of it, you're looking to see what's happened. Where would you take it next?
So we kind of view this data as sort of like a framework to go off based off the things we listed, such as the sound profile and trigger cities, to be able to detect where future talent might be. We believe that in the future, with a bit more data and research, that the information here is also transferable to other markets, such as Latin American music, Asian music. So I think that here the goal of it and the actionable insight is to be able to find different talent and apply the same framework to other markets.
Thanks.
Rahul, did you still have a question?
Yeah, sort of answered, but I'll try to frame it for difference. Really clever use of Spotify audio features, and I'm wondering how do you have some hypotheses on why the genre of the Nigerian music market or the particulars has evolved over time? Or what is it? New instruments or new types of music, new generation? I was wondering if you all had more specific hypotheses on why that the clear shift in the definition.
I think it kind of reflects the overall trend of music, kind of globally, actually. You can see artists like Wizkid, for example. He's been active for over a decade, and his initial music is very much like party, loud, like bass, a lot of that. And so his music now has kind of slowed down a bit into the Afro R&B genre. And so I think the reason for the changes across all the features is just the general pivot musically to like alternative R&B, slowing things down, just kind of that sound where it's like, I guess a little more low key is the general word. And so really Nigerian artists are kind of just keeping their ear out for the sound that they're hearing everywhere else too. And it's working out well for them.